All right, we ready? Everybody can hear me okay? Yeah. All right, thank you. You can start the clock whenever. So I want to start out by telling everybody thank you, but starting with Dee Dee, first and foremost, and Gary for inviting me and putting on a great conference. It's great to see everybody. There he is. Karen has it. And putting on this great convention at a great location. I think it's awesome. And also, I just wanted to say a big thank you to all of you guys because you've been fantastic, very kind. Everybody who's come up to me to talk to me has just been really welcoming, like friends. So I think that that's really what's important about this movement. And I think it's something that gets missed a lot, is just getting together, like-minded people, talking, opening your hearts to other people, opening your minds to other ideas. And it's really exciting to be here. But one of the things that, if you would have told me 5 years ago that I would be in Amsterdam today giving a presentation on flat Earth, I would have told you were crazy. But obviously the world, moves in weird ways, and that's where we are. So it's been great. Amsterdam's been great, beautiful city. The architecture is fantastic. Been here for only 2 days, and a big thank you to Mike for showing me around yesterday. And we did check out a coffee shop, so that was fun. It caused me to take an early nap yesterday. But just beautiful. I mean, I can't even express in words how amazing it is to be here in Europe. So the only thing that I thought was a little bit scary is I saw some of these mushroom shops, and I was afraid that if I did any of those, I would come home believing in this. So that told me to stay away from that. Or I might believe in this. Can you believe that this is supposed to be real? Can you believe that? It's a picture, and believe it or not, that there is Earth. If you want to believe the stories that NASA tells you, and science wants to push that into the minds of the youth and everything, but not me. I don't believe it. So, this presentation is going to be pretty short, and if you've ever seen any of my live streams, I go all over the place. I just sometimes have a hard time staying on track, so I might get carried away and bring up some other topics, but for the most part, I want to stay on topic, so I have a couple, 7 topics I want to cover. One of them being, what is flat Earth and why does it matter? One thing that we need to recognize is that the more science explores reality, the more baffled it becomes. I mean, that's something that can be seen pretty much in every scientific field. They're very confused as to what things are real. Everything's changing. We've heard tonight, Eru brought it up great. What is a particle? These things that have been explained and taught as facts, and that these things are easily grasped when they're not. They're not even real items, real things. So to me, what is flat Earth? Why is it important? It's important because truth matters, right? Just like my shirt shows, just like the slide shows. I think we get away from the importance of truth when we are indoctrinated to what to believe, what is true, what is factual. So to me, there's a big difference between honest opinion and contrived responses, or between lies. And the one thing that I can tell you for sure, and this is something I don't know if a lot of you know, Nathan Stoltman, who has the Lift the Veil YouTube channel, one of his little monikers, his little subtitles is usually right, always honest. And I think that's said really well. That's all I can promise you guys about me. There's a lot of people in the audience that I think would agree with that statement, that when you're listening to a Nathan Oakley, or you're listening to myself or a Paul on the Plane, the one thing that I can grasp is that usually they're going to be right, but we're always being honest. And I think that's the most important thing about this. What's different about this than listening to somebody repeat what comes out of a physics book, or somebody on the news who's just reading off of a teleprompter? What's different? This is my honest opinion. This is really what I feel. This is really how I think. And I think the same is true for a lot of other content providers that are out there. So this is my honest opinion. It's the way I see the world. And thank you. It's no longer about what I was taught, because if it was true what I was taught, then eventually when you look into it, when you get to a certain age and you start to do the checks on it yourself, you would come to the conclusion that those things are panning out, that they're matching observations, that they're matching intuition, logic. that's not true. When we look at these things, they don't match. And so some people can just turn their head and say, I'm going to deal with it. Dave Weiss says it best all the time, that it's really easy to believe a lie. I could get up here and tell you guys a story about what happened to me earlier today, and you can just all sit there and believe it. In order to really investigate whether or not I'm telling you the truth or whether or not I'm making up a story, you'd have to actually go back and track my day. What time did Jeran get up? Where did he go? How did he get here? Did he really stop off at X street or whatever? So it's very easy to tell a lie. It's very easy for people to believe lies. And when you look at that statement alone, that it's very easy to tell lies and it's very easy to believe lies, you can start to see what happens to this world and why it's gone south and why it's a place of lies now. So a quote that I think is important for us to look at, Arthur Schopenhauer said, all truth passes through three stages. First, it's ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. Third, it is accepted as being self-evident. I think one thing that's interesting about this quote is that we're really just right here, if you think about the truth of where we live. So people could say, maybe we're here. I don't even think we're here yet. Yeah, we had some people from the media call and complain about this conference, but really that's here. It's ridiculed. It shouldn't be allowed. We shouldn't be allowed to have free speech. We shouldn't be allowed to talk at this venue because it's a library and the library shouldn't back flat earth. But really, this is what's coming. I think that this is what's coming. So a lot of people asked me, a few of you asked me at lunch today, when do I think this will go mainstream? And I think it is mainstream right now, but it's mainstream this. It's ridiculed in the mainstream. And that's what we should really expect. So I'm no longer shocked when I see those things happen. Was I shocked when I saw what happened with Behind the Curve and some of these other documentaries or news pieces? Originally, yeah, because I was like, oh, these guys are flat out lying. But what it tells you is that they have to lie. Why? Because they're in the period of it's being ridiculed. So if they can't be honest with what I'm saying, if they can't be honest with some of the other people in this community are saying, of course they have to make up stories. So we have a lot to go. I always bring up this quote in every single conference I've given so far, and probably every conference I ever give, because this was, or every presentation I give, because it was really important to my realization of what's going on with science. So this is George Ellis. He's one of the top 5 or 10 cosmologists or physicists out there. And he said, people need to be aware that there is a range of models that could explain the observations. For instance, I can construct for you a spherically symmetrical universe with an Earth at its center, and you cannot disprove it based on observations. So that part of the quote right there is very interesting. I've talked about it many times before, but what he's basically saying is that he can create, just like we heard Robert Sungenis talking about earlier, he believes the Earth's at the center. He does believe it's a globe. Obviously, you got to take things in baby steps. But that's where he's at now. He believes that we're at the center of the universe. So what George Ellis is saying is that he can construct that spherically symmetrical universe with the Earth at its center, and you can't disprove it based on observations. He says you can only exclude it on philosophical grounds. In my view, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. What I want to bring into the open is the fact that we are using philosophical criteria in choosing our models. A lot of cosmology tries to hide that. So I'll always bring this up just because when I first heard this is the part that gets me. This is a cosmologist, a scientist, supposed to be talking truth, telling you a lot of cosmology tries to hide that. So that should be shocking to anyone. Why are we using science to hide things? So a lot of cosmology, meaning his field of research, is trying to hide the fact that you can't tell the difference between the Earth at the center or the Earth swirling around the sun and going around crazy speeds. So I think that's an important quote. Obviously from George Orwell, 1984, truth is the new hate speech. During times of universal deceit, telling the truth becomes a revolutionary act. And that is why, the topic of this section was what is flat Earth and why is it important? It's important because this exact reason, that if we believe it to be the truth, if we think this is factual, then we need to be the ones, I need to be the one stepping out and telling the truth. And if it's a revolutionary act, well, that's the way it's got to be. So, like I said, 5 years ago, if you would have told me I'd be here, I'd say you're crazy. But now, when I look back and I see quotes like this, I'm at the place where the universe, wants me to be. Whether it's the creator, whether it's whoever, it's what feels right to me and should feel right to those of you here. The other thing that flat Earth is it is the realization that the Earth is a plane. You know, that all these heights that we're supposed to get up to with balloons, we're not seeing the curve that we're supposed to see in the measurements, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more here shortly. Another thing I wanted to point out, and you know, what is flat Earth? Many people have seen this, the Earth.Null School flat Earth map. So this is one that has the Earth at the center. I just did this one to show you, this is the high altitude winds, and you'll see that these winds are whipping around the south. This is just from the other day, I don't know the date, probably maybe a week ago. But one interesting thing here, you'll see me changing it now to a globe. Remember, if we've got the North and the South Pole, even if there's a tilt, we should have very equal things on both ends. When we flip this around to see the South, you'll see that we've got these high-speed winds, 118 miles per hour. Some places, I'll probably click a couple other places to get a little faster. These winds are whipping around in this direction at the South Pole. So that's interesting, but we should be able just to flip the globe to the north and see the same thing. We flip the globe to the north and you'll notice that there are no winds. So that's a big problem. It makes more sense on the flat Earth, doesn't make any sense on the globe. The other thing doesn't make any sense, and I bring this up all the time, is you have to remember that the Earth is spinning in this direction and that the winds are going faster than the Earth spins in that direction. So simply an impossibility in my mind. Again, if you picture swinging a basketball on your finger and then saying, okay, well, the air that's connected to the basketball spins with it, okay, I'll give you that. Now I have to believe that the air on the basketball is spinning faster than the basketball in the same direction. So eventually you just run out of the ability to even understand where they're coming from. So that's kind of what flat Earth is. It's the idea that our entire reality has been painted for us. It's been taught to us. It's been indoctrinated through public education. Once you're awake, I'm sure all you guys know, isn't it everywhere? Everywhere you look, every commercial, every movie, every music video, you name it. It's all about this globe propaganda pushing that whole entire idea. So, and they get them while they're young. You have no choice. I've talked about it before. It's impossible to come out of 4th grade and not believe that you live on a spinning ball. It's just what's going to happen.
I disagree.
You disagree that it's impossible? Or you mean like...
I teach my kids.
Okay, that's good. And I'm wrong in saying that. What I meant was before this change started. So, 5 years ago, it would have been impossible to come out of 4th grade. Now I do think we are making a difference. People are teaching their children, they are talking about it. A lot of people come and ask me, should I teach my child that the Earth is flat? And, I wouldn't, personally. I just think it's important to teach them to be critical thinkers. To say you're not going to always be told the truth in school. To think about it, to listen to what they say, process it. But we just don't want to teach people to be complacent in just believing what they're taught. So I don't think anybody here should do that. I don't think I should do that. Nobody should hear my presentation tonight and just say, oh, I believe everything that he said. I wouldn't go that direction. I would go a direction you want to challenge things that I say, challenge everything that you hear. Mark Twain, something very interesting here, says, history is strewn thick with evidence that a truth is not hard to kill, but a lie well told is immortal. What exactly is he talking about here? What is he getting at? Could be a lot of things, but really people think that when they read history books that that's the truth, that the truth is what gets cemented on paper. But obviously Mark Twain felt differently. That a truth is not hard to kill. Obviously, if you can write it out of a book in a minute, it's gone. But a lie well told is immortal. So a very important quote there. What the flat Earth isn't, I'll kind of go through this quickly because a lot of people covered the same topic. Paul and the plane mostly hit some of these that I don't want to be repeating, but it's not this flying disc in space with the moon here and flying upwards at 9.8 meters per second squared. So to any media here, we don't believe that. We don't believe that we're floating in space, that we're out here with these galaxy clouds, the Magellanic clouds, or out here in the stars. That's not what we believe. We don't think, obviously, also, just so you know, we didn't just appear out of a cave. I don't know where the media is, but a lot of people think that, oh, flat earthers are so dumb, they must have just woke up yesterday. No, we all went to school just like you did. We learned the same things you guys did. We've just come to a different realization. We don't believe that we're a flying space pizza, which is what you'll see when it's ridiculed in every article and every newspaper. They'll always have that picture or online article. Also, it's important for me to point out, it's not a religious movement. You know, I think a lot of people treat Flat Earth as a religious movement. Obviously, we've got the conferences in the United States that are put on, you know, by Robbie, who's Christian. But, you know, I think I leave it open to anybody to come up. They have their own ideas of the infinite, and each person needs to be on their own path and needs to find their way to what I believe is true. I believe that there is a creator. I believe that we will be judged for our actions here. But I think the path that each person takes to get to that realization is up to them. So I'm not here to tell you that if you don't do this or that, or you know, you wear threads that you're not supposed to wear, or do this, that you're going to go to hell. I'm not here to tell you that. So I don't think it's religious. It's not Christian. It's not Islamic. None of us belong to the Flat Earth Society. Paul said that, you know, really well. There is no edge. Obviously, we don't believe that. We're not an upward floating disc. We don't believe that all pilots are liars, so please don't say that. We don't believe all scientists are liars. We don't believe everyone at NASA is in on it. So I don't know any flat earthers to believe those things. So, you know, please don't tell people that that's what we believe. You know, we don't believe that there's another side, at least for me. Maybe you guys have a different opinion of how flat Earth works. Dave Weiss said it really well the other day when he says we are the basement of the universe. I thought that was a really interesting way to put it, and I kind of believe that the Earth is all that there is. So I think that we are of prime importance. I believe that the universe, everything that we see in the sky, was put here for us, for time telling, for signs and times, if you will. But I certainly don't think that we're out floating in, you know, the endless space, and you know, the sun is over here and that kind of nonsense. So don't tell us that, or don't write that about us. We'll talk a little bit about pseudoscience and mathemagic, but you know, what exactly is pseudoscience? Two different definitions here, but you know, pseudoscience is a collection of beliefs or practices mistakenly regarded as being based on the scientific method. So, you know, a lot of flat Earth, if you listen to the Nathan Oakley, you know, flat Earth debates, very important that they stay on the ideas of being based on the scientific method. Because what happens is a lot of these globers venture into the idea of pseudoscience, which is pseudoscience consists of statements, beliefs, or practices that are claimed to be both scientific and factual, but are incompatible with the scientific method. If you want to know what I'm talking about here, listen to any of the flat Earth debates where they stick to this point constantly. That's one thing that Nathan Oakley's done really well. That some of us even venture into the land of, you know, talking about some ideas and concepts, but really they focus on the fact that, hey, you're claiming that your globe Earth is scientific and factual, and they're showing how it's incompatible with the scientific method. So I think that that's really important. Science has become like a religion. You know, it is a religion. It's believed by these guys. None of them know anything about what they believe. You know, on the flight here, there was a person sitting next to me, just a short flight, Copenhagen, and I was kind of talking to the guy a little bit. I didn't tell him I was a flat earther at first. I was trying to, until after the flight, I told him my channel name, so he'll go back and find out. But I told him, hey, did you hear some people believe the Earth is flat? He's like, oh, I've got a friend who tries telling me that. So well, what do you think? He's like, oh, it just isn't. Like, well, what reason isn't it? Because it just can't be. Well, why can't it be? Because it just isn't. Well, why isn't it? Because it can't be, right? So, I mean, it just shows you what kind of religion these, I mean, it's been taught to them. They've been, you know, he has no other answer besides that. So, everybody hears math is reality. I think a couple other speeches today really did a good job of pointing out how it's not. So many ways, but we'll do a quick exercise here in a second. But, you know, is math all it's cracked up to be? You know, all that we were taught that it is? You know, I don't think so. Can it be contrived? Absolutely. One of the, you know, questions that you guys can argue between yourselves is it invented or is it discovered? It's a tough question, no matter how you look at that. But we'll just do a quick exercise here just to show you a little example here. So everybody pick a number 1 through 9, keep it in your head, okay? Got the number? So multiply that number by 3. Hopefully you can do that in your head. You got that? All right. Add 3. All right, got that? Multiply again by 3. Hopefully you can still come up with something. You got it? You should have a 2-digit answer in your head. So add those 2 digits together. So if you had 22, add 2 plus 2 would be 4. You got that number? So now we're going to see what your opinion of my YouTube channel is. So go ahead and find it up here, what numbers matches with yours. What? Bad math. Dave can't do math. No. Yeah, if you came up with any answer other than 9, your math is terrible. But I just wanted, it's a very simple, silly math exercise, but really when you start to understand how math can be manipulated, how when you're talking about formulas and things like that you can really do some interesting things. There's another one here, pick any number, and you can pick any number, but multiply it by 2, add 6, divide by 2, subtract your starting number, and everybody will come out to 3. Yeah. So everybody's seen these before, very interesting, but Albert Einstein said, as far as the laws of mathematics refer to reality, they are not certain, and as far as they are certain, they do not refer to reality. So certainly interesting that we go to Einstein a lot for quotes. Obviously I saw this in somebody else's presentation, it might have been Paul's. Was it yours, Paul? Thanks for stealing my content. The scientists from Franklin and Morse were clear thinkers and did not produce erroneous theories. The scientists of today think deeply instead of clearly. One must be sane to think clearly, but one can think deeply and be quite insane. Today's scientists have substituted mathematics for experiments, and they wander off through equation after equation and eventually build a structure which has no relation to reality. So Nikola Tesla. Another interesting quote here, and going back to Einstein, everybody's seen this one before. But I always talk about the fact that weren't we all taught in school that the sun most certainly, or the earth most certainly goes around the sun, right? But even Einstein said right here that either coordinate system could be used with equal justification. The two sentences, the sun is at rest and the earth moves, or the sun moves and the earth is at rest, would simply mean two different conventions concerning two different coordinate systems. So once you believe in relativity, once you've accepted that as your truth, like science has, then you should no longer be able to teach that the earth goes around the sun, because it's all relative. Meaning if you're on the sun, you would see the earth going around you. If you were standing on the earth, you'd see the sun going around you. So obviously, like he says, it's the same thing. Whoops, did I miss one? Just talking about math real quick. I don't know if anybody's ever seen this. I've showed it a few times because I think it's an idea if you know what Common Core math is being taught in the United States right now. Let's read this question together and look at what the child answered. Carol read 28 pages of a book on Monday and 103 pages on Tuesday. Okay? Is 75 pages a reasonable answer for how many pages, more pages Carol read on Tuesday than on Monday? So you think of that, you say, well, 103. Yeah, well that looks like, explain your answer. Okay, so this child said yes, 75 is a reasonable answer because 103 minus 28 equals 75. 103 minus 20. The teacher marked it minus 1 because you need to estimate. 100 minus 30 equals 70. So now we're teaching children that to get the right answer is wrong because you should have estimated. You should have taken 100 from the 103 and 30 and said the answer is 70, even though this child got it perfect. The child did exactly what they said. Yes, it's a reasonable answer. It's 103 minus 28 equals 75. But not in today's world. They're just teaching children to be dumbed down. It is a world of lies. You have every right to question what liars say. There's no doubt in my mind. I'll proclaim that until the day I die. You have the mainstream narrative, which we know is a lie. The Federal Reserve System, we know is a lie. The fiat debt, based currency. The medical industry, the pharmaceutical industry, which is not meant to make you any better, simply meant for profits. The education system, as we talked about, these recent college admission scams. I don't know if you've seen that in the American news. Vaccines and flu shots, they give them away for free now. You can even get a $5 coupon from certain stores in the United States if you get your flu shot for free. Elections, our DNC and RNC are completely corrupt. The food pyramid, it's a joke. All wars are completely jokes. The war on drugs in the United States couldn't be a further joke. Weapons, we found out that the United States government is actually directly involved with these weapons manufacturers, bringing weapons into the United States. Same thing with drugs, bringing cocaine into the United States. So we're dealing with liars from the start. Russian collusion, corruption we've heard about recently, the swine flu, ozone depletion, the censorship of free speech should tell us something. But in the USA we have Operation Northwoods, the Gulf of Tonkin, Operation Paperclip. All these things should prove to us that governments do lie. That's step one. We need to realize that. I can't speak on behalf of your government here, but certainly my government has proven to me that they're liars. They pad their pockets. They're not here for my benefit. They're here for their benefit. So once you realize that the world is a world of lies, then you should be able to move forward from there. Like in Rodrigo's presentation, he had talking about Hollywood, music, it's all lies. History, we know is lies. Government grants, corruption, the oil and energy industries, the origin of the universe is a complete and total joke. NWO, I think, is where we're going. It is a new world order. How do we know that? Well, just look at this director of the CIA's quote, William Casey. We'll know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false. When you have your own CIA director saying that, how does anybody expect Americans to trust what we're being fed? By especially these mainstream media outlets that push lies, they copy off one another. In case you didn't know, this is what we're told an airplane flew into on September 11th, 2001. Obviously, anybody who can just look at the size of things realizes that a plane does not fit there. First of all, this little truck here, this truck barely fits there. A plane would be much longer. I guess the wings went into these windows and back or something. But it's so obvious that we're being told lies, and I hope people recognize that. If they'll lie to us about things that we can touch, that we can go and verify, things that we can expose, then why would we think that they're telling us the truth when it comes to what's in the sky? Places we can't go, distances that we can't fathom. That's the first place we should go and say they're probably lying about that, right? The things that we can touch here, we can go test, or we can go verify, those are things that we've learned that they're lying about, but those are things that we should be expecting to be true. And the things that we can't verify, moon landings, robots on Mars, rovers on Neptune or whatever, those are the things I think that we are going to have a hard time believing. Bill Nye, by the way, is not a scientist, right? Everybody knows that. He is I forgot to mention one thing on the slide with at the Pentagon. That's the most highly protected, spot probably in the world, certainly in the United States. Supposedly there's 27 cameras that line the front of that building. I don't know about you guys, but there's never been any video footage of any plane anywhere close to the Pentagon other than the one side view with some frames of some smoke. Could have been a missile or anything. Bill Nye, not a scientist, like I said. He's an actor who has a degree in engineering, and he's more of a science cheerleader than anything. And he constantly explains natural phenomenon by yelling, "It's science." Well, it's not science. The fact that the sun rises, that is not science, But let's hear him talk here about climate denialism.
Do people ever treat you with hostility?
Do they ever greet me with hostility? Yes, it's nothing but hostility. The big one is Bill Nye's not a scientist. Okay, I can read a graph, so can you. That is infuriating. To have people in the United States denying science, the same country that sent people to the moon, for crying out loud. You look for reasonable explanations, cause and effect. I'm just not clear on what's going on with so aggressively denying science. It's almost like they're on the world is flat camp. The world's not flat. Humans are causing climate change. Pretending it's not happening is not in anyone's best interest. They could stop denying it for economic reasons.
So again, it's funny that they keep pushing this ridicule thing. So he's got to throw in there where he's talking about climate denialism. If you deny the climate, then you're just somebody who believes the earth is flat. You're in that camp. Speaking of climate hysteria, thank you very much to the... oh boy, you guys saw this one? You had to throw that in there just because obviously climate change is a huge science hoax, and this girl, you should not put her on TV and tell us all about how you've stolen my childhood. Entire ecosystems are crumbling and the oceans are rising. And it sounds like, have you ever seen The Never-Ending Story? I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, but it reminds me of that. The nothingness is sweeping over the earth. That's what it looks like. Interesting thing here about, I guess I would call it, one of the main reasons that for flat Earth, for me, it just seems to be, I don't know how you can argue it at this point. When you've got something like this, you'll see down here it says pending new world record. This is a flight in 2015, started December 28th, came back January 1st, 2015. This is the current record for a single plane to circumnavigate the Earth. Here's the problem with it. The white path is the proposed path. They were supposed to start here in South Carolina, fly down to here, end up in Brazil, fly over the South Pole, come back over here, and then head up to the North Pole and finish off and get the record. I watched this live on some thing called Spider Tracks. The plane flew down here to the south, flew to the 90 degrees, and then flew right back. And then went around this way, and this way, and I said, okay, well, at least they won't get the record. No, they got the record. And I said, but this isn't circumnavigation. How can somebody going to the South Pole and then returning where they came from? So the red path that you see is the path that was actually taken. The white path is the proposed path. For me, that's just really important. Now, you'll have people tell me that Sir Rundle Fiennes, I don't know if you know who he is, supposedly traversed in the late 70s, early 80s, as we can see up here, these dates. But when I go looking, and these are all things put out by him, I find different, this is a 100,000 mile route. Okay, well, they tell me it's 100,000. Over here, it's a 35,000 mile journey. Okay, over here, he did a 52,000 mile journey. It's just making it up. And it's like, Jeran said, they can just put any numbers in there, and people will believe it. Anybody who reads this will believe it. Anybody who reads his book will believe it's 52. Anybody who goes to his own website will believe it's 100. But again, it's not very true if you ask me. This goes to what Jeran was talking about. Now we've got scientists asking, whether even photons exist. So we were all taught these things were fact, right? Photons, it's how light travels. But again, right here we've got people saying that photons don't even exist. I don't know if you've seen this recently. This is a little bit older of an article, 2014, but now there's physics professors telling students that scientific evidence points to a designer getting away completely from the ideas of evolution, which is great because you know how hard it is to get away with not teaching evolution in school. It's nearly impossible. You won't even have a job for very long if you don't pull it. This is recently, just 2 months ago or so. But again, famed Yale computer science professor quits believing in Darwin's theories. A couple good videos on YouTube if you want to look this guy up. David Gellertner. But definitely check it out because he no longer believes it, and I don't think anybody should. The reason I bring up evolution so much is I just hope people understand that there's a lot of people who have broken through the evolution idea. You'll talk to a lot of people who just say, I don't believe in evolution. My hope is pretty soon we get the globe to the same point, where a lot of people understand that, yeah, we're taught it. Yeah, it has to be taught in school. Yeah, it's going to be in curriculum. Yeah, it's going to be in textbooks, but they just dismiss it. A lot of people are able to do that with evolution. Right now I can talk to people on the street and say, well, what do you think of evolution? They may believe that the Earth's a globe and everything else, but they're at least able to say, I don't believe in evolution. I understand why it's taught. I understand why they have to teach it. Because they have to. That's a requirement in school. You'll get kicked out of being a professor pretty quickly. We'll see how long this guy lasts. Isn't it funny? I don't know, just put in CERN's logo. I don't know if anybody's ever seen the CERN logo, which is clearly 666. The other thing, I don't know, where people are with this one, but it's certainly interesting that a lot of these guys are being fired for finding soft tissue in dinosaur bones. Another thing that proves to us that the Earth isn't nearly the age that they tell us. They're finding dinosaur bones, whether you believe they're dinosaurs, whether you believe they're old, whales, it doesn't really matter. The point that matters is they're telling people that these are dinosaur bones. But when some scientists like Mark Armitage here, I forgot the name of the other girl that did it, they're testing it and coming back and they're able to carbon date these things, which are coming back 10,000 years, 15,000 years old. Of course, they get immediately dismissed. Here's another one about carbon facts. I thought it was interesting. In the whole world, if the whole world were one big ball of carbon-14, it would have all decayed in 1 million years. Yet all dinosaur bones, all oil deposits, all coal deposits, and all diamonds have C14 in them, which is incredible. Really should tell you that the Earth is not as old as we've been taught. This is what I was telling you about how they're explaining it. The fact that they've found these soft tissue in these dinosaur bones, now they just say, oh, well, it's because the iron was preserved in the tissue before it could decay. But of course, you have to expect them to have some sort of answer. They always do. They always have something that they can come back and say. Isn't it funny? Many people know Kent Hovind, but he's somebody who should be on the flat earth side. I don't know how long it's going to take for him to come here, but he already tells us that chemical evolution is a lie, stellar evolution is a lie, organic evolution is a lie, macroevolution is a lie, geologic columns are a lie, dinosaurs are a lie, earth age, Pangea, but he believes in the globe. So sometimes you just, eventually maybe he'll get there, but sometimes maybe not. It's hard, to know. We can talk a lot about, NASA lies, and I talked about it in my movie, Going Nowhere Since 1958. But remember, which is incredible to think about, that the space industry is worth more than music, movies, and video games combined. How much more? It's double. So think about me getting up here and telling you that, we should, get rid of music, it doesn't work anymore. That's going to have such a huge backlash because there's an entire music industry that's, has to sell things, has to hire people, has to make money. And what if I told you the same thing about video games? Those things are not going to be accepted if I get up here and say we should stop all video games because they're lies. Well, there's so many people who have jobs. Everybody works at GameStop or sells video games or does video games online. So to think that the space industry is worth 2 times more than the entire music, movies, video games combined tells you why I say, like Rodrigo mentioned, that NASA is a jobs program. It's all about keeping these jobs going. It's not just NASA, it's all over the earth, across the earth. It's all about your imagination. The reason for space has always been inspiring children and adults to strive for more, to reach for the stars. Can you give them credit for at least doing that? Maybe. Do I think it's right to do it through lies? No. But you've got Werner von Braun who said there's no Buck without Buck Rogers. Of course, Buck Rogers is a comic strip that he's basically saying you have to have these comic book ideas, this space travel idea that we're going to have some space contraption that people are going to live in. There's going to be these space motels. We're going to have, people be able to go and stay on the moon and lunar bases because there is no bucks, there is no money coming into NASA without the Buck Rogers. They even have to parade their little thing through the streets so that they can make sure everybody sees that, hey, we do have this plane, it does go to space. Many people have seen this video. I just put in just this clip because I've talked about it many times before, but clearly what we're seeing is these guys pixelate out as they do these moves and the background stays completely fine, which only happens when you've got this green screen here with possibly something in the background, whether they're on wires. I think they do it in many different ways just so we can never pinpoint it. Obviously you get pictures like this from NASA, but we can see clearly this craft is not bent in this way. Is there actually some sort of craft up there taking pictures? No, I think it's too easy to do in other ways, which I'll show you here shortly. We can see this bend here is clearly the same bend as here on this craft. Same thing here, it's all done with fisheye lenses. This clearly, anyone ever looked up at night and seen a yellow haze? I haven't seen it myself, but maybe other people have. Clearly this is just fake footage. We've all seen these images, the shadow on the wall here when you reduce or add the enhancements, which tells me that it's inside. We've got these tracks and things that they built, and this is exactly what looks like the footage. It looks like the footage that we get from NASA. Believe it or not, this is supposed to actually be real. And you can tell here in a second, you're going to see the window here move because supposedly somebody's in some other craft filming this craft. See here? Okay. You can believe that if you want, but I've done a video before. I guess I have that out of order, maybe. We'll get back to that. Oh, should Armstrong be trusted? This is the biggest one for me that I could never.
Mr. Armstrong, Bart Symbol, ABC Digital, wanted to give you the opportunity to swear in the Bible that you walked on the moon. Will you put your left hand on the Bible and swear to God that you walked on the moon?
Gentlemen. Mr. Sarko.
Yes? If you really walked on the moon, why would you not do that? So why don't you just put the end to the record in the argument and put your hand on the Bible, swear to God.
Think how easy this would have been for him to do.
Mr. Sarko, knowing you, that's probably...
If he went on the moon,
Well, no, it's a real Bible. You have the opportunity.
now he's offering him $5,000.
The meeting, it's not over.
Well, you have $5,000 cash. You can give it to charity if you swear on the Bible that you walked on the moon. I have a tape.
That'd be fine.
Why don't you swear to? Why not? Why won't you do it?
Look at him running away
So
from
why
it.
don't you put your hand on the Bible and swear to God that you walked up?
It's the equivalent of me getting back to the United States and somebody saying, Jeran, swear on the Bible that you went to Amsterdam. and me running away from the person. No, not doing that. I'll give you $5,000, Jeran, if you swear on the Bible that you went to Amsterdam. No, not going to do that. You don't deserve answers. Doesn't make a lot of sense. To me, the only reason that you would do that is if you really felt like you couldn't swear on the Bible that you went somewhere. That would be the only way. Speaking of Buzz Aldrin, should we trust him? This is from his book. He says, many people don't know that his mother committed suicide just months before he went to the moon. Imagine that. You're scheduled to go to the moon, your mom commits suicide, and you end up just going. He says here, my mother once took too many sleeping pills and my father had to rush her to the hospital. We all pretended that her overdosing was accidental, but I think we knew that wasn't the case. In May 1968, mother's second attempt to an overdose proved fatal. Even then, my family and I preferred living in denial and never spoke openly of how she died. We asked the coroner to list her death as cardiac arrest, and the coroner graciously complied. So it's just telling you right there, like, nah, we just felt like telling lies, so we told the coroner to tell a lie, and everybody told a lie. So to me, I don't think it's a very believable person. I think it's incredible what Charles Bolden says, that the next administration tries to change course, and he said this a long time ago, this has already come true. This is exactly what's happened. And get NASA to lead another manned expedition to the moon, that it means we are probably, in our lifetime, in the lifetime of everybody sitting in this room, we are probably never again going to see Americans on the moon, on Mars, near an asteroid, or anywhere. And this is the head of NASA, okay? Or was at the time. For him to say that, and it's so funny because when you think about it, he was just a child when they supposedly went to the moon. So in this man's entire life, does he even know it's a hoax? I don't know. Maybe they just know they can't do it. Somebody else already played this. I'll skip through this real quickly. Obviously saying that we're off by a factor of 10. However, or if they're wrong with a theory, they usually say they're off by a factor of 10. When it comes to cosmology, we're off by a factor of 10 to the 120, which is the one with 120 zeros after it. I just wanted to show this video, which was supposed to be in a different spot, but it's fine. Where it is. Do I have like 5 minutes?
3.
3? Okay. Okay, thank you. But I've showed this video before, but just like I showed you before, the picture of the ISS sitting outside or looking through a window, how easy this was for me to do. You guys get past my cat. How easy this was for me to do. I did this with a 99-cent, about $1, about €1, piece of green green poster board that just by putting it in my window and taping it nice and neat, you can make it so when you open the window, you look out. So that cost me $1. So when I know NASA has $56 million a day, obviously they can, when I move it around, it still looks like I'm looking out, the window. And that's very easy for anybody to do. You can't even see on the edges. Somebody can't say, I can see a little bit of green. Oh, look, I can see what's going on here. No, it looks the same as all of their videos when they go to the cupola. And again, this cost me 99 cents to do. So when you see pictures like this, this to me could just be the same thing. It doesn't have to be real at all. Same thing with this, right? So this is something that they show as being real, but it really has no difference than what I just showed you. Yeah, sure, mine was a little more ridiculous, but it still cost me $1. So when I see this, I'm no longer impressed. It's just too easy to do this with mock-up stuff. But a lot of people, they see things and they think that it's real. They think that everything that they see on TV is real. They think this is real. This is CGI, as is most things that we come across now. And for some of the best realizations or really proofs of that, watching some of Jeran's stuff really shows me a lot of what he can do with 3D modeling. Of course, they can show this on TV. They could show, and if you showed this to anybody, they would say it's real. But it's all just CGI. It's just pretend. In this video I've showed before that I've went out before, and you can't, from the ISS, for some reason we can't see lights on the Earth. But I can go out. This is the front of my house. I can show the lights over there. It's going to be probably hard to see because it's a little light up here. But that right there is Jupiter. And then looking over here, if I can see, you can easily see, usually when I show it, the ISS is traveling in this direction. There it is. But you can see this is my iPhone, my camera. And so these guys on the ISS, they have these really expensive cameras. They can't show lights on the ground. They have nothing to verify that what they're actually doing is true. we see too far, do the research on Canagoo, J. Tolan Media's IR stuff, Isle of Man stuff that's been done, Balaton tests, Ben from Tapu Conspiracies tests. We've done the mirror observations across the Monterey Bay. That's just clear that we see too far. You've got people all the time saying, well, why are these buildings cut off? And they don't realize that if you do the math, you're not supposed to see any of these buildings. The water should be above the tops of all of them. So just rushing through the end of this here. Another thing, just pointing out, people have a hard time understanding that you can see the best close to you, and as things get further and further away, they get lighter and lighter and lighter until they disappear. Just the way vision works. Things disappearing bottom up. If you've ever seen Zachary Zabala's film, and oops, probably end with that. Okay, that's supposed to be a video. Maybe it'll come up here. So we can see how things ramp up. Here we go. And once they get to that horizon line, everything starts to fall down. And so this is the same thing that happens over any distance that you're looking at. You have the horizon line here. You've got the things in the foreground ramping up, coming down here, and then they start to appear to curve, as you can see kind of here. And you can check out his channel, Good Times for All. A lot of people know about him because he does some great practical examples. He did this in a warehouse by lining up, basically had a long flat plane like this, was able to line up a bunch of canisters, and from that he's able to get this view. And then I'll show you here, then we'll be done. When he zooms in there, we can actually see the repeating that we see. It's a little hard to see, but he actually will do one other view where you can see it a little bit better. But you get that doubling up in the refraction zone that we see all the time. So here it comes here. Yeah. So really, as you can see, when you zoom in and see all this, and this is down a very long hallway, obviously the camera's at the ground, you can see the ramping up, you can see the horizon line, you can see the ramping down, and then when it gets to the horizon line, you almost start to see it bend. But if you look here, see the repeating there, and the repeating here, the repeating here. There's actually basically a line of invisibility here. That you have boats that go and they hide behind this refraction zone. So it's really easy to see why we see things disappear from the bottom up. So, like I said, that they will lie to us about everything that we can see, and so I think that they're lying about space. Something that Kant said that I think is really true is he says, appearance, as long as it is employed in experience, produces truth. But the moment it transgresses the bounds of experience and consequently becomes transcendent, it produces nothing but illusion. And I think that that is really what we're dealing with. So I had a little bit more, but I will probably do something on my channel to kind of finish it off because I know my time's up. But I appreciate your guys' attention for this presentation, and thank you for being so kind to me while I've been here. Appreciate it a lot. Until next time, guys.